Okay, we are going to begin talking about bones and skeletal tissue. Okay, there are 5 main functions of the bone. First, it supports the body and helps cradle the organs, so it kind of provides something for the organs and muscles and everything to attach to. It protects the brain and your spinal cord and other vital organs. It allows for movement, so again, something for your muscles to attach to. If they didn't have anything to pull on, your muscles couldn't really move you. It also helps store minerals like calcium and is where your blood cells are made. So hematopoiesis is the formation of blood cells, and this happens in the bone marrow. So bones are classified in 2 different main categories, and depending on where they are in the body. You either have the axial skeleton, which is the skull, the vertebral column, and the rib cage, and this is kind of everything that the main center that everything else hooks onto. The appendicular is the limbs, the hips, and the shoulders. So bones are also classified in terms of their shape. So a long bone is just like what it sounds like. It's long, so it's longer than it is wide. So this would be something like your femur bone or your humerus. A short bone is kind of cube-shaped. Now, it's not going to be exactly like a cube, but kind of short and square-like. So all the bones that are in your wrist and your ankles are considered short bones. You also have flat bones, and the best characteristic of these is the skull bones and irregular shaped bones. So they don't really fit into any of the other categories. So your individual vertebrae or your pelvic bones are irregular shaped bones. The parts of the bone is also either a compact bone or a spongy bone. So a compact bone, as you can see in that picture, is very dense. So there's not any air in them. And spongy bone on the inside is just like what it sounds. It looks like a sponge. So there's lots of holes in it, and those are usually filled with yellow bone marrow. Okay, these are the main parts of a long bone. The 2 ends are called the epiphysis. And then the long part in the middle is the diaphysis. And inside the diaphysis, you can see there's different parts, such as the endosteum, the periosteum, and this is where the medullary cavity is, the nutrient foramen. And then up there in the epiphysis, you have a lot of spongy bone. You have the epiphyseal line, and this is where bone growth is going to occur, and we'll talk about that in another set of notes, but this is where your bones grow. So when you are young and you're growing and you have those leg aches, most people probably remember feeling their legs ache as they were growing. Well, that's your bones growing longer, and it was happening there at the epiphyseal line. And then on the ends, you'll have the cartilage at the ends of your bones, and this allows them to kind of provide a friction-free environment as your bones are moving up against one another. Okay, epiphysis again is the end of the long bone. It's bulb-shaped to provide a place for muscles to attach. The exterior is compact bone, while the interior is spongy bone, and you can kind of see that in the picture there. And it's covered by cartilage to help cushion the joints. The periosteum is this really thick, dense covering around bones. So you have the bone itself, and then the periosteum is in that picture there. It's the white outer covering there. And it's very strong, it's very dense, and it kind of helps provide protection for that bone. It's kind of like wearing a coat. And it contains bone-forming and bone-destroying cells, as well as blood vessels. And both of those types of cells are important for bone cell survival, remodeling, and repair. So either for growth, or if you broke your arm or your leg and you have to repair that bone, that's where those cells are going to come from to repair your bone. In the very center is the medullary cavity, and this is where you find the marrow, and it's the center of the diaphysis. So you don't really see this in the epiphysis, it's just in the long center shaft called the diaphysis. and it's filled with yellow fatty marrow in adults. In children, you have more red bone marrow as they are, because children are still making a lot of their blood cells still. Endosteum is the thin membrane that lines the medullary cavity. So short, irregular, and flat bones, they don't have a diaphysis or epiphysis. That was just for long bones. But they will have a layer of compact bone on the outside and spongy bone on the inside, and bone marrow inside the trabeculae. The trabeculae are kind of the honeycomb structures there, so kind of those walls of bony tissue that look holy and spongy and stuff. So an osteon is the actual structural unit of the bone, and we looked at this when we were studying our tissues, and it kind of looks like the rings of a tree. You have lamella, which are the concentric cylinder-shaped rings. They're what looks like the rings under the microscope. You have the central canal, or also called the Haversian canal, and this is where blood vessels and nerves will kind of snake their way through. You have lacunae, and those are kind of those little dark dots that go around the lamellae. And that means little lakes. And they're small cavities that contain osteocytes, which are bone cells. And then you have the canaliculi, which are hair-like canals that connect the lacunae to each other and to the other central canals. So they're not isolated. So basically the lacunae are not isolated within their ring, but they are attached to by the canaliculi to other bone cells and other parts of the cell, and this allows for those blood vessels and nerves to kind of be throughout your bone. Okay, so here you can see the lamellae. So here is the big ring. So again, this is what makes it look like a tree ring, and you've got several layers of it. Inside, so in these kind of craters here, you have the cells, and those craters are called the lacunae. And you see it here as well. The canaliculi are all these little side canals that are connecting one lacunae to another. And then you have the Haversian canal, which is where blood vessels and the nerves will going to snake through. Spongy bone does not have the osteons like the compact bone does. Those are those tree rings that we were just talking about. It contains needle-like bony structures called trabeculae. Trabeculae give bone increased strength and allows it to be fed by the blood supply coming from the periosteum.